Title: Shattered Vows. I always thought I understood heartbreak. I'd seen it in movies, heard it in songs, even comforted friends who'd sworn their worlds had ended. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the moment my world exploded. And the thing about explosions? They don't just destroy, they scatter the pieces far and wide, leaving you scrambling to collect parts of yourself you'll never fully find again. It started innocently enough. Like all great tragedies, the day seemed ordinary. I was tidying up the kitchen of the small apartment Taylor and I had shared for the last 3 years. A space we had filled with laughter, late-night conversations, and dreams of a forever I thought would be ours. The scent of lavender from the diffuser filled the air as sunlight streamed through the window, warming the pale blue walls. I'd always loved this time of day. The calm before the evening chaos. The soft hum of life that whispered promises of comfort. Taylor was working late, or so they'd said when they kissed me goodbye earlier that morning, their lips lingering against mine in a way that still made my stomach flutter after all this time. I smiled at the memory, brushing a strand of my dark hair behind my ear as I placed the last dish back in the cabinet. I was planning dinner, a surprise, Taylor's favorite pasta, but my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a notification from Instagram. A casual ping that could have been anything. But when I picked it up, that was the first crack. A photo. Taylor. My Taylor. Sitting close. Too close. To someone else. Their arm was draped around a woman I didn't recognize. Her blonde hair loose around her shoulders as she leaned into them with a laugh. The caption read, "Thanks for an unforgettable night kiss mark." Unforgettable night? My breath hitched. My hands trembled, gripping the phone so tightly I thought the glass screen might shatter. My chest tightened around the growing weight of dread, squeezing until each inhale felt like a battle. For a moment, I told myself it was harmless. A friend, a colleague, but the intimacy of the pose, the casual way their bodies entwined, it told a story too damning to ignore. I scrolled, desperate for answers. There were more pictures, more smiles, more touches that lingered, each one stabbed at me like a blade, carving deeper into the illusion I'd built around the person I loved. My vision blurred with tears. But it wasn't until I reached the final image that the pieces of my heart shattered completely. A picture, taken at a cozy bar downtown. Taylor holding her hand, their lips pressed together, unashamed, brazen, as if there was nothing in the world to hide. For a moment, I simply froze. I stared at the screen as though it held answers to questions I hadn't asked yet. My mind raced to explain it, to make sense of it. Surely there was a mistake. Taylor wasn't. They couldn't be. Not after everything. Our plans. Our dreams. The promises whispered into the dark when we talked of forever. I don't remember much of the next hour. I know I stood there, tears streaming silently down my cheeks as I replayed the slideshow of betrayal over and over. I must have moved mechanically, putting the phone down, canceling dinner plans, replacing the lavender diffuser with something harsher. Eucalyptus. Maybe. As though shifting the scent would purge the stench of betrayal that clung to the walls of our home. When Taylor walked through the door later that evening, the weight of the day pressed heavily into every feature of their face. I watched, silent, from the kitchen as they shrugged off their coat and placed their keys on the counter. Humming lightly under their breath. "Hey," they said, smiling as though everything was fine. As though their lips hadn't been on someone else's just hours ago. "Smells good in here. You okay?" Quote, "You okay?" The words ignited something fierce inside me. The audacity, the unflinching ease in their voice. The gall to stand in front of me as if they hadn't annihilated the foundation of everything we'd built. 1,000 responses flashed through my mind, each one sharper than the last, each one threatening to burst out in a scream. But instead, I simply asked, "Who is she?" Quote, Taylor blinked, the smile faltering for just a fraction of a second. "What do you mean?" Quote, I steadied myself, gripping the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. "The blonde. The one in the pictures." My voice was cold, steadier than I thought possible given the fire raging in my chest. "The one you kissed." The color drained from their face, the carefully constructed mask of innocence slipping as panic bloomed in their eyes. It was almost laughable, how quickly they crumbled when faced with the truth. I wondered if they'd always been this fragile, if I'd been too blind, too in love, to notice the cracks before. It's not what you think," Taylor stammered, reaching out toward me, only to stop mid-motion as I flinched away. "It's just work stuff. You know how things can get complicated." Quote, "Work stuff?" My voice rose, the barely contained fury spilling out in bitter waves. "So you're calling cheating on me with some random woman work stuff now? That's creative." Taylor frowned, their brow furrowing in what might have been guilt, or maybe frustration at being caught. "It didn't mean anything. I swear. It was just a mistake." "A mistake?" The word tasted bitter on my tongue, like poison. "How long have you been making this same mistake, Taylor? How many times did you look me in the eyes and lie before walking out the door to go work?" Quote, They didn't answer. Of course, they didn't. The argument spiraled from there, emotions running high as accusations flew between us like shards of glass. Taylor begged for forgiveness, promising it was over, claiming they'd never meant to hurt me. But the words felt hollow, empty. I was drowning in betrayal, and I refused to let them pull me under with their lies. When Taylor finally left that night, slamming the door behind them with a defeated sigh, I collapsed onto the couch. I sat there for hours, staring at the darkened screen of my phone as the broken pieces of my heart carved jagged paths through every inch of my body. But as grief threatened to consume me entirely, another emotion began to rise from the wreckage. Anger. Not the fleeting, impulsive anger that leads to shouting or throwing things. No, this was something deeper, something primal, a slow burning rage that simmered within me until it consumed every corner of my mind. Taylor's betrayal deserved consequences. I deserved justice. And I was going to ensure that they got exactly what they deserved. That's how my plan began. At first, it was just an idea, a vague notion of revenge that provided a shred of solace in the face of devastation. But as the days passed, as Taylor's apologies grew weaker and their excuses more transparent, the plan solidified. I didn't want to simply hurt them. I wanted to unravel the carefully constructed life they'd built around their lies. And I knew just where to start. Taylor's career had always been their pride and joy. A high-powered position at a marketing firm, complete with flashy campaigns and an impeccable reputation. It was the reason they worked late, traveled often, and networked with people like the blonde woman from the photos. Slowly, meticulously, I began digging into their professional life, searching for leverage. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. The blonde woman, Samantha, wasn't just another random fling. She was Taylor's coworker, not just a coworker, either, but their subordinate. The company had strict policies against fraternization, policies Taylor had clearly ignored in their desperate pursuit of pleasure. And as I dug deeper, I discovered the affair wasn't as secret as Taylor had led me to believe. Several colleagues knew. Whispers had spread. Human Resources had even received an anonymous complaint, though no action had been taken. The pieces of my revenge fell into place with alarming ease, armed with screenshots of incriminating photos and emails, proof enough to ruin Taylor's professional reputation. I waited for the right moment to strike. And when it came, I didn't hold back. The day Taylor's world crumbled was both exhilarating and devastating. I sent the evidence anonymously to their HR department, along with a detailed account of their inappropriate relationship with Samantha. The fallout was immediate. Taylor was called into a meeting. The truth laid bare in front of the entire executive team. By the end of the week, they'd been fired, escorted out of the building under the watchful eyes of colleagues who now saw them for who they truly were. But I wasn't finished yet. I made sure the photos leaked beyond the office walls, spreading to industry contacts and professional networks. Within days, Taylor's once sterling reputation was tarnished beyond repair. Invitations to conferences were rescinded. Partnerships dissolved. The life they'd worked so hard to build was reduced to ashes. And, as I stood in the ruins of what we'd shared, I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. Revenge had been my salvation, the only thing keeping me afloat in a sea of betrayal. But it hadn't brought closure. It hadn't healed the wounds Taylor had left behind. Still, as I watched them struggle to piece their life back together, I knew justice had been served. They'd destroyed my world once. Now, they understood what it felt like to lose everything. In the end, I walked away from the wreckage, bruised but stronger. I'd learned to trust myself again, to rebuild without the lies that had held me captive for so long. And though the memory of Taylor's betrayal still stung, it no longer defined me. Because sometimes, to rise from the ashes, you have to light the fire yourself. Word count, 3,585. Continued from the previous section. In the weeks that followed Taylor's downfall, I found myself in a strange, uncharted territory. My world, once defined by our shared dreams and whispered promises, was now eerily silent. The apartment felt cavernous without their presence, every room echoing with memories that I hadn't yet managed to exorcise. But I didn't regret what I had done. How could I? Revenge was supposed to be a release, a catharsis that purged the ache from my chest. But the thing no one tells you about vengeance is this. It doesn't erase the past, it doesn't stitch up the wounds or silence the doubts. The betrayal lingered, its venom slow to fade. But for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of control, a glimmer of agency in a story where I had once been cast as the victim. I sat at the kitchen table one evening, staring at my lavender diffuser as its gentle mist curled through the air. This had been Taylor's favorite fragrance. I'd swapped it out for eucalyptus the day I discovered the photos. But now, absent their presence, I felt oddly detached from the symbolic gesture. Lavender didn't remind me of Taylor anymore. It reminded me of myself, of the mornings I'd spent alone in this space, building a life that, in hindsight, had been mine all along. I didn't need to scrub the apartment of their ghost, I needed to reclaim it. So I let the lavender linger, a subtle defiance against their absence. The days slowly stretched into weeks, each one a little brighter, a little less suffocating. I'd begun painting again, something I hadn't done since college, when my love for art had been shelved in favor of practicality. The canvases piled one atop the other in my spare bedroom, a riot of colors depicting scenes that ranged from whimsical to chaotic. The act of creation grounded me, each brushstroke a reminder that I was capable of building something beautiful on my own. But Taylor wasn't entirely gone. Not yet. They were still trying to claw their way back, still sending pathetic texts and leaving voicemail messages I refused to listen to. At first, their tone was desperate. I swear, this wasn't what it looked like. Please, just give me a chance to explain. Then came the guilt trips. Do you know what you've done to me? My career is ruined now. I hope you're happy. And finally, the anger. You think you're so righteous. But this makes you just as bad as me. No, worse. Each message flickered onto my screen, tempting me to respond, to engage, to open the door just a crack so they could slither back in. But I didn't. Not because I was indifferent. Oh, how I wished for indifference. No, I stayed silent because I'd learned my lesson. Taylor didn't deserve my pain, my anger, my attention. They didn't deserve a single word in response. One rainy afternoon, as I stared out at the city skyline from my apartment window, the phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Another attempt. I was about to delete it, like all the others, when something stopped me. Call it morbid curiosity or a flash of weakness. But I pressed play. Taylor's voice filled the quiet room, cracked and raw in a way I hadn't heard before. I know you hate me, they began. Their words shaky yet deliberate. And I get why. But I want you to know, I never meant for it to go this far. I rolled my eyes, gripping the phone tighter as their self-pity permeated the air. I messed up, they continued, their tone softening into something almost remorseful. I ruined everything. And I've lost so much because of it. My job, my reputation, even Samantha. She won't talk to me anymore. And honestly, I don't blame her. I don't blame you either. What I did was unforgivable. But you didn't have to destroy me. A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. Didn't have to destroy you? Oh, Taylor, darling, you destroyed yourself. All I did was pick up the pieces of your shattered integrity and make sure the world saw them for what they were. I hope you can move on, they said. And for once, there was no edge to their voice. No venom. Just exhaustion. Just be happy. That's all I want for you. Even if it's not with me. The voicemail ended, the weight of their words settling over me like fog. For a moment, I simply stared at the phone. My reflection distorted in its darkened screen. There it was again. That flicker of control. The reminder that I had seized my agency and wielded it like a sword. Taylor may have hoped to leave me broken. But I'd found strength in the wreckage of their betrayal. Still, their words lingered longer than I cared to admit. Part of me wanted to scoff, to dismiss their apology as self-serving nonsense. But another part of me, the softer, wounded part, felt the pang of something resembling closure. Maybe Taylor wasn't capable of true remorse. But this voicemail was as close as they'd ever get. And it was enough. Months passed, and the revenge that had once consumed me faded into memory. Taylor's name became just another one I deleted from my contacts. Their presence reduced to a shadow that barely registered in my day-to-day life. I didn't see the fallout firsthand anymore. But word of their professional decline reached me occasionally through mutual connections. The once rising star of the marketing world had fizzled out. Their name now synonymous with scandal and disgrace. I should have felt guilty. Maybe. Perhaps there was a version of me. One unscathed by betrayal. Who would have pitied Taylor? Who would have extended a hand to pull them from the wreckage? But I wasn't that version of me anymore. I was someone stronger. Someone sharper. Someone who had learned to take what they deserved and leave the rest behind. One evening, I found myself at the same bar where Taylor and Samantha had flaunted their affair. It was unintentional. I'd been dragged there by friends who insisted on a night out. But as I stood at the counter, sipping a cocktail and scanning the crowd, the familiarity hit me like a freight train. This was the backdrop of my destruction. The place where my world had begun to crumble. And yet, as I stood there now, I didn't feel anger or sadness. Instead, I felt powerful. I glanced at the mirrors behind the bar, catching my reflection in their gilded frames. My hair was styled differently now, shorter, wilder, and I wore a bold red dress that I never would have dared to try when Taylor was around. I looked like a stranger, but I felt like myself. For the first time in far too long. "That's a killer look," a voice said from beside me. A man, tall and rugged, with warm brown eyes that crinkled at the edges when he smiled. Mind if I sit? Quote, for a brief moment, the walls around my heart creaked under the weight of caution. I hesitated, searching his face for red flags, for signs of betrayal, but all I found was sincerity. So I nodded, and as he slid onto the stool beside me, I realized something important. Revenge had been the fire that ignited my rebirth, but it wasn't the thing that would sustain me. Connection would. Creation. New beginnings. As we talked, laughing over shared stories and sipping on cocktails that grew sweeter by the hour, I felt the last remnants of Taylor's presence lift from my chest. My revenge had opened the door to a world where I could finally thrive without the weight of betrayal dragging me down. I'd burned the bridge, yes, but now I could walk forward in the light of what lay ahead. Word count, 2,300 plus.